Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow on Thanksgiving Eve. Bob Judge is our special guest, CEO, founder of Government Loan Solutions, co-sponsor of our secondary market summit next week out of New York. Bob, camera shy, but Bob, welcome as always.
Yeah, I don't want to ruin the program by them seeing my face, so.
Well, as long as you're not on mute.
I'm sorry?
As long as you're not on mute. But
yeah, that's fine.
Bob is the expert on 7A secondary market pricing. Bob, let's talk a little bit about our event next week. You and I started this in 2008, 2009. What was the first year that we did this?
2008, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, and there was no secondary market. It had frozen. Lehman Brothers had just declared bankruptcy. We did it in New York at the Williams Club upstairs. There was no air conditioning. It was the end of August. It was hot. And I always love to tell this story about Bob as he's giving the speech, and he's sweating, and he's talking about how bad everything is. And he says, I got to open up a window, and we're up on the 13th floor or whatever. And he opens up the window, and we're all going, don't do it, Bob. Don't jump. Don't jump. It's not that bad. But we've seen in the short time we've done this, we've seen great recessions.
Yeah, we've seen just about everything you can throw at us, right? I mean, including an epidemic.
Yeah, but it's a great event. We hope you take care of it. Bob, real quick, give us a preview of the summit. What are we going to be talking about? We're going to do it over 2 days, 2 hours, 2 days. 2 days, 2 hours a day. I have a problem with sitting in front of the computer for 4 hours about something. But what are we going to be talking about?
We're talking about sort of where we are in the secondary market, and of course we've been all over the place this year. Prepayment speeds also have been all over the place this year because of government help in varying degrees. A lot of stuff we'll be talking about. Will this be extended? Will it not be extended? Obviously those two scenarios change the outlook for the market considerably. Just kind of get an idea as to what possibly could happen next year under different scenarios of what the SBA is going to do for principal interest payments, whether the Fed is going to stay involved, things like that.
Yeah, we're going to get Katie and Lance involved as well on the agenda, and we'll announce that more formally beginning of next week. But it's always a great event, and this is strictly secondary market. And Bob, we have a ton of stuff to talk about with different scenarios, and what may be effective on November 25th certainly is going to change by December 3rd with all the changes and call it what it is, the changes in administration. And Bob will give us our crystal ball of what's happening in 2021, won't you, Bob?
I'll give it my best. I'll give you my opinion, which, you can weigh that as you will. What that's
and
worth.
To your credit, we have never come back a year later and said, Bob, this is what you said, and this is what happened. So we won't hold you to that. Well, very good. Let's see. We want to talk about what's going on with PPP. So the first question is, how many of your PPP loans are over $2 million?
I'm thinking, Bob, we're going to have a pretty strong response in 0 to 5.
I would agree with you. Oh, Lance, you must have peeked at the poll results.
I guess what stuns me, Bob, is the over 15.
I agree. That's quite a bit.
Because the $2 million plus PPP loans, I mean, those are going to get reviewed. So, the ones who've gotten over 15, $2 million plus PPP loans already forgiven, that's awesome. Great job, SBA.
What percentage of your PPP forgiveness loans are being reviewed by SBA overall? We're trying to determine if that 10% mark is high, low, if that's the industry benchmark. Oh, very good. Lance, and that's sort of what you thought. You thought it was less than 10%, right, Lance?
Well, I had heard from somebody 10%. I felt like that number, it's possible that a particular participant lender might have that many, But as a whole, I'm going to guess that the review percentage probably is going to be 2 to 3%, maybe.
Okay. Well, that's important to know. So if you're in that, and some people, as you said, will be up in the 10% range.
But Bob, they have some sort of metric. They use risk metric to determine whether they're reviewing it or not. And a particular lending institution might, it's like get the luck of the draw and have 10% of their deals reviewed. So, I mean, if you have a higher than 2 to 3% number, I don't think you need to take it as a problem. It's just kind of the luck of the draw, I guess.
A question to Bob's heart, near and dear to his heart, is what percentage do you sell? What are the answers going to be on this, Bob?
No, I muted myself again. I would say probably in the 40 to 60% range will be the...
That would be my guess. That would be my guess also. We'll see what... Wow. Well, you and I are both wrong. Interesting. Look at the... Well... Actually, if you think about it, if you go over 80%, so that's 1/4 of the people. 0 to 20, if the average looks like it's going to be in that 40 to 60% range. So that makes sense. Lance, why is this important?
Oh, it's just that it's a COVID-related, the CDC has to certify that the borrower has no adverse change prior to closing. So it's just important. You don't want 504 loans sometimes take quite a while to underwrite, quite a while to get SBA's approval. My understanding is that the approval process is kind of backed up now. So a business's position could change pretty dramatically, or it might not. But there just has to be a certification that there's been no adverse change.
Lance, what is your definition of a substantial adverse change?
It could business closure.
Okay, that counts.
Significant. Well, and a pandemic related. Let's say that you have a 504 project that's been underwritten and approved, and suddenly there is a government-mandated shutdown in that particular industry. That could be a significant adverse change, but and hopefully we will not come to that. But they're just looking for a certification that the information used to make the approval is still valid.
What do I do if I'm in LA County, I'm hospitality, I'm a restaurant, and I've been told I have to close for 3 additional weeks, and then I get to reopen again? Do we disclose that? Do we move on? What do you recommend, Lance?
Well, I think it has to be disclosed, and maybe you delay closing for a period of time until they're back open. Depends on the particular business. They could have good working capital resources, and it may not be necessary.
What about a 15% reduction in sale revenues? Is that substantial?
It depends on the industry that you're in, Bob. Many industries have realized 15% or more reduction in sales,
right,
and a lot of the underwriting now really look strongly at working capital in the business, how they're managing expenses during a revenue reduction. So, you can't just do a broad stroke on businesses that have a reduction of 15%, Bob. I've seen financial statements from companies who've had a 20% reduction and actually have an increase in net profit and an increase in cash available for debt service. So a lot of it depends on how they manage the business.
Very good. Katie, what's going on in Congress? We keep on getting bills every day. Tell us about this one. First of all, when was this introduced?
So these have both been, there's a Senate bill and there's a House bill. The Senate bill was introduced on the 10th. I do not remember when the House bill was introduced. Unfortunately, we only have the text of the House bill, so I can only really comment on that. But both bills are intended to help with that EIDL advance that was being deducted off of PPP forgiveness. Basically, the House bill is super simple. It's about 2 or 3 lines there, and it would just add to the CARES Act saying that the amount of loan forgiveness an eligible recipient receives under that section shall be determined without regard to any advance from that EIDL loan. Very simple and easy text. I think it's very likely that at least one of these is going to pass, especially since we've got 2 bills now that essentially are saying the same thing.
Now, on the EIDL advances, Katie, what is the maximum of that? Is that the $10,000 limit? Is that $50,000? What are we looking at?
So the advance could be up to $10,000. Of course, it depends on the number of employees and things like that. But the highest you're going to see is the $10,000.
Okay, very good.
Well, the fun thing, Bob, is how are they going to deal with all the PPP forgiveness decisions that have been made that were reduced by the idle advance? Now, I like a simple description. I like the 2 or 3 line description of the bill, and just leave SBA to figure out how to deal with those that have already been processed.
Yeah. Lance, you got called to the principal's office by Rebecca. She says the first question asked how many loans were over $2 million, and Lance's response seemed to regard how many were forgiven.
I thought they were saying that those were forgiven, Bob. Thank you, Rebecca. Hey, it's the day before Thanksgiving, guys. I'm in holiday mode right now, so thank you.
Okay.
But that is, Rebecca, you're right on point. That's how I was taking it. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm blown away at how many people are getting $2 million PPP loans forgiven.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Rebecca. Love it when we can call Lance on the carpet. Makes me all warm and fuzzy. Why is this story important, Katie? Why do we care about SBA releasing all data? We've talked about this in the past. Some people have said it's voyeurism. Other people use it for marketing. Why do we care?
So the thing that's interesting and is likely to happen out of this is we're going to find out not only who the borrower is, how much they got in a loan, but also their lender and some other very important information. And of course, that can help with marketing. We've heard on the show that several people have used that to reach out to borrowers who didn't quite get enough. But there is a privacy concern on the borrower's side that was brought to their attention during this case. And basically, SBA was saying that this is a privacy issue for all of those borrowers, and it's not ideal to have all of their information out there. The judge,
go ahead.
Yeah, the judge yesterday determined that that's basically not the case, and that the amount of people who would like to have this information in public interest of preventing fraud and things like that, it would be better to release all that information. And of course, right now we just have over $150,000. Some of the information on that. This would broaden that information and expand it to those lower loans.
Yeah, and some I was going to say anti-turkey to have this done by December 1st. Someone's giving up a Thanksgiving. Go ahead, Lance.
Well, one of the problems, Bob, and I've talked to lenders throughout the country, we're starting to see PPP loan recipients get unsolicited marketing via email about PPP forgiveness. Now, I did not, and I've seen a couple of those emails that were shared with me. I did not see the potential for fraud, but it's just around the corner where these wonderful people who put links and emails, to capture all your information are going to be saying, hey, you got to, if it's all released, suddenly the good guys and the bad guys are going to get involved, and our PPP borrowers will get an unsolicited email and they'll click on a link and it'll create havoc. So,
that reminds me of 10 years ago when we had the emails on, hey, we can restructure your SBA loan. We can work with you on that. And there was a lot of fraud. There was, I'll stick with that term. There was a lot of fraud in that.
most of the emails that I've seen to this point, Bob, seem to be from third-party service providers who are wanting to offer assistance with PPP forgiveness for a fee.
Which is legit.
But I'm sitting asking the question, how did they get that information?
Gary has a great question. Are we getting any pushback from SBA to guarantee construction financing? The pushback would only come, well, it would come in a review process, but also if it's processed through GP through Sacramento. Lance, do you have any feel for what's going on in the marketplace?
I have not heard a lot of discussion from other lenders about pushback from SBA on loans submitted GP. Of course, if you're submitting them POP, SBA is not going to push back because they're not necessarily going to see it. But I think it's like any loan, whether it's construction, working capital, underwriting, needs a few additional steps to make sure that the construction project is in a market that needs that business and a market that will support that business. Because it's like every restaurant. So many lending institutions, Bob, are afraid of restaurant loans. Well, there are deals that are going to work that, you take, and this is not a small business, it's a big company, but you take Domino's, their performance throughout the pandemic has been outstanding. So there are restaurant deals that will work. There are restaurant construction deals that will work. So, but in terms of pushback from SBA, Gary, I've not heard of it or seen it.
Nathan asks the questions, are you aware of any $2 million loans being approved? We've submitted a handful, have not gotten anything back. And again, our polls and our talking to people, I haven't heard of any that have been approved, correct?
I have not heard of any either, Bob, although I got all excited earlier in the show, Bob, about the people.
Am I right on that, Katie? We haven't got any
I have not gotten any confirmation that any of them have. It's possible there's been a handful, but I haven't heard anything yet.
Joseph, make a note. Let's ask that question again on Monday. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Barbara says, to Lance's point about idle forgiveness, hey, that's fine, but it's a little unfair to the people who have received the forgiveness, but the $10,000 was withheld. What are we?
Yeah.
What's the legislation doing with that, Katie? Or do we go back? Do they get the money back, or is it gone, or do we know?
I don't think we know yet, especially since I read that whole bill. I basically just read it on air here. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to send it to SBA, and it's going to be up to them to figure out how they're going to handle it.
Lance, what do you think?
I've got to be honest with you, Bob. My comment about the simple nature of the proposed bill was not related to the borrowers who have already been forgiven, who got the idle advance taken out, not being taken care of. My excitement about it is it sounds like they're not going to muck it up by putting too much verbiage in there that makes it difficult to implement. And the way that read, it seems like it would put it in SBA's court on how to fix the ones that have already been through forgiveness and the idle grant was taken out. Mm-hmm. And I think SBA would do a great job of taking care of that.
Let's see, real quick, a couple of things. Rebecca says, well, here, let's go with Barbara. Barbara's following up on her question. It says, borrowers that got idle before PPP would get forgiveness under the proposed bills. Okay, thanks, Barbara. Meanwhile, PPP borrowers that got idle loans second were denied the advance and did not seem to be considered in the discussion. So we'll see what happens on that. I think Barbara is more on top of that than I am. So thank you for that feedback. Rebecca says on a transaction over $2 million, the SBA asked for the questionnaire on Friday. Sounds like they'll be asking for all the info on the questionnaires for all those borrowers. So they're starting the process on that. And we'll follow up on this next week as well. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Enjoy your time with what you can with your family. We will be dark on Friday, so we will not be broadcasting. Lance is going to do this great webinar on business acquisitions on Tuesday the 2nd, so be sure and consider that. And Bob Judge, we will be releasing on Monday a very further agenda with all the speakers. Bob, you still with me?
I'm here.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us, Bob. Have a nice and safe Thanksgiving. Katie, safe travels. Lance, enjoy your Thanksgiving. Everyone the same. And let's be safe and have a good time. And we'll talk to you all on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.